In this video, I'm going to go through why people remain stuck or why they remain in a cycle of any pattern. If they can't lose weight, if they're drinking too much, if they can't sleep, I'm going to explain why we never actually make a shift. And once you understand this one concept, you'll be able to begin connecting to it so that you can make the major shifts that most people never make throughout their whole entire lives. My name is David Haas. I've spent the last 20 years of my life uncovering why I am the way I am. This eventually led to going down the path of moving up the all-important scale of consciousness. So if you're interested in learning more about this, stick around and let's get into why people don't actually change. Okay, so the first thing that I think we all need to understand, and this is a concept that we've all heard, which is we have body, mind, and spirit. But I also like to add like another one. So we'll call this body, we'll call this emotions, which is one that I think people are not adding. Call this mind, and we'll call this soul. Okay, so I'm just adding one here. Usually it's body, mind, and soul, but I'm adding body, emotions, mind, and soul. All right, and so when people have a problem, what they usually intend to do, what they usually end up doing is they try and solve the problem on the physical level. So let's just like come up with an example. Now you can put anything you want in this space, but one of the ones that was coming to me recently is sleep. Let's just say you can't sleep. So if you can't sleep, what you're gonna do is you're gonna try and, most people are gonna do, they're gonna try and solve this at the physical level. They're gonna go to the doctor and they're gonna say, hey doc, I can't sleep. And the doc's gonna say, okay, well, here's some sleeping pills. And in the beginning, the sleeping pills are gonna work. You know, you're gonna probably start to experience better sleep. But over time, the effect of those sleeping pills is gonna begin to reduce, and you're going to need more and more and more in order to be able to sleep again. And so then you start to recognize that, hey, maybe the doc gave me the sleeping pills didn't have all of the answers. Maybe I need to solve this at a more emotional level. Maybe the reason I can't sleep is because something is happening at an emotional level. Maybe it's because I'm going through a divorce, right? I'm going through a divorce, and that divorce is really weighing heavy on me. And because of that heaviness of that divorce, it is showing up in the physical body as not being able to sleep. And so then you go to another doctor, which is now like a psychiatrist or something, okay? And so now you go to the psychiatrist and he says, hey, you know what? I think you actually, you're having trouble dealing with the pain of this divorce, so I'm gonna give you some more pills, antidepressants. And now I know that this is going into like a pill thing. This is not just a pill thing. Maybe you just go into talk therapy, okay? And you try and deal with the emotional pain of going through a divorce. And so get a little bit of help there, and then slowly you start to sleep a little bit better. But of course, because we haven't really gotten to the root of the problem, the sleep patterns begin to reemerge. The negative sleep patterns begin to reemerge. And so then we say, well, maybe we just need to do something like in the mind. Like maybe the mind is too busy, right? And this is why we're not sleeping. And so then we add meditation, we add breath work, we begin a journaling practice. And all of it is to begin to create awareness around why we're having all of these thoughts and why these thoughts left unchecked continue to show up as sleep problems. And so if you combine all of these, most people will probably experience some relief. But if the problem persists, it's because we are missing what is happening at a level of consciousness or at a soul level. And now the important thing to remember about every single one of these levels is that each has power over the next. So if you experience emotional trauma like a divorce, it's probably going to show up physically, like not being able to sleep. If you are thinking so much about not wanting to feel the sadness of your divorce, that sadness will show up as not being sleeping. But if you can use the power of the mind and say, oh, I noticed that I'm sad, I choose now to feel that sadness, you may experience relief in the physical body. But where people get stuck is when they get trapped in these cycles, right? Where they have a pain, they experience some relief, and then the pain shows back up again, and we get stuck in the same cycle over and over again. You see this with like overeating, you see this with any addictions, you see this with personality traits such as like the angry person who is always angry at everything. And so in order to solve once and for all, we have to get to the soul level. Now, what is the soul? It is the thing that allows us to observe what is happening in the mind. Then the mind can observe what is happening at an emotional level. And the emotions, the emotions don't observe, but the emotions then show up in the physical body, okay? And so by using the power of the soul, we can begin to observe what the mind is telling us. And so the mind is, let's just say we can't sleep. So we're laying in bed at night, we're sticking with this example, and the mind is just racing, thinking about all of the things that we have to do to make sure that we don't get fucked in this divorce, okay? And so what the mind is doing is trying to prepare us to not fail, to not lose, to not look like a loser, to not get taken advantage advantage of. And so the mind is protecting, and its protection has become so intense that it is showing up in the physical body as not being able to sleep. So if we actually want to solve for what's happening at the mind level, we have to look at the soul. And so in the soul, we can observe, we can say, oh, I notice you, mind. I notice that you're trying to protect me from the pain of being taken advantage of, okay? And so when's the last time you can remember being taken advantage of in your life? And then you can start thinking back to all of those moments in your life where you felt like you got screwed over. And then you're going to recognize that the fear of being screwed over, the fear of being taken advantage of you, has been with you your whole entire life. And this is because you're at a certain level of consciousness. At a soul level, you might be at level of consciousness 100, which is fear. And so, because each level has power over the next, if you are at a soul level of consciousness of fear, it will show up as never-ending fearful thoughts of being taken advantage of in this example, which will show up as the emotion of the pain of being taken advantage of, which will show up as a physical symptom of not being able to sleep. And so then when we can have the awareness that we are in fear, we can then make the conscious decision from a level of consciousness, from our soul, and we can say, oh, I am just avoiding this pain. At a soul level, I can recognize that I can be okay and I can transcend and I can move up the scale of consciousness. And so where we want to move to on the scale of consciousness is 200, which is the level of courage. At the level of courage, we can say, I am willing to experience the pain of being taken advantage of. I can handle that pain. I've made the connections throughout my whole entire life of where this pain first began in my life. Most of that pain that we're avoiding is repressed, meaning there is probably no amount of medicine, no amount of talk therapy, no amount of thinking that is ever going to bring this repressed feeling to the surface. And so that's why we have to get outside of the mind, the emotions, and the body, and we have to connect to that all-knowing, all-powerful source, which is essentially like your version of God or the universe, which has all of the answers. And we need to say, what is it? Why am I still stuck here? And when you make that connection through the present moment, just by getting still, just by getting silent, the unknown will be revealed to you. And when you're sitting there, you may all of a sudden think about a moment where your best friend didn't invite you to a birthday party. And this was the moment where you felt like you had been taken advantage of or left out or felt like you were less than. This is the level of consciousness that you have been stuck in your whole entire life. And now finally with this awareness and this realization, you can move to this place of courage where you say, I am willing to face that emotion that I haven't been avoiding my whole entire life. I am willing to stop this cycle that continues to show up in my life so that I can also stop that cycle for my children as well, right? And that's the other part of this, is that as a soul, we come into the physical body with a certain level of consciousness. Like Jesus, for example, was born at level of consciousness 1000, which is the highest level of consciousness that you can get to. Buddha moved to level of consciousness 1000 through the process of moving towards enlightenment. And so as you begin to connect to this, you will get information that was repressed or unavailable to you. And in that, we can have the awareness that we can transcend and we can move to higher states of consciousness. When we shift our level of consciousness, all of these problems go away automatically or effortlessly. There is nothing that we need to add. There is nothing that we need to do. We just have to have the awareness of where we're at and where we need to go. And this is how you actually create real change. This is why most of the world, including myself, I've been stuck here as well. I'm not perfect. Just get stuck in these sticky things, this broken record, this problem that continues to persist throughout our whole entire lives. Like, let me give you one example. It's like, if you are a guilty person, if you have a guilty conscience, if your parents made you feel like you weren't a good kid, and because of that, you were constantly, thinking that you should be doing better, which is guilt. That level of consciousness of guilt will continue to show up throughout your whole entire life. You will make decisions that will make you feel guilty. You will cheat on your partner that will make you feel guilty. You will maybe, if you're a woman, you maybe have a baby early, which makes you feel guilty. The thing that we are holding in mind, or our level of consciousness that we are at, will continue to show up until we finally have the awareness that we can observe that level of consciousness and make the shift towards feeling and dealing with that pain so that we can transcend. So this is why this work is so important, because everyone is focused right here trying to solve at these levels, but all we really need to do is solve at a soul level, and that creates the change throughout all other levels. I hope this video helps. If you got any value from it whatsoever, just click that like and subscribe button to train the algorithm so you can see more information just like this to help move you up the scale of consciousness.